Okay, so we're going to be talking about the notes for 17. Now, this sheet that we're going to be talking about, the several sheets here, will go over most of what you need to know for 17. And the standard deviation, remember, was on the end of 16 notes, so that was kind of the first part of 17. Now, in this class, we've talked about that a little bit already, but I'm going to go ahead and go through these notes for 17, and then go back and pick up some standard deviation after this. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take a break later, probably after I finish this part, and we'll do that in a little bit. Okay, so measures of variation, and again, this is part of 17 notes. This is going to continue with a lot of what you've already learned about median and some of those things. So what we're going to do is talk about quartiles. Now, what's interesting is the middle quartile is actually the median. And so that's always what I suggest you start with first, is finding your median. Now, remember, when we find the median, another part of that is to put your numbers in order. We want to put the numbers in order first to be able to do that. So we would check that here. 4.1, 5.2. It looks like these are in order. They're already in order. So we don't have to worry about that. So we're going to find the median first. Now remember, part of that is counting how many we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 11 total. We counted those. So of course, is that odd or even?
Odd.
No? Odd, good. Say it out loud so that I hear you. That's an odd number. So we should be able to just find the middle number if there's not a whole lot of them. So, but remember the other way, if there is a lot of numbers, is we could say 11 divided by 2 is 6.5. I'm sorry, that's not right. 5.5. 5.5. And round up, well, that will round up to approximately 6. So it should be the 6th place. Let's see if that makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that in the middle? I've got 5 on this side and 5 on that side. So I could have just found it here. You know, but if you have like 100 numbers, you would want to do this way. So that's the median. We want to find that first. So I'm going to show you my other find median. And that's in the very middle of this whole thing, of course. 7.2. Now, what we're going to do, if there's an odd number here, we're going to exclude the middle number. Now, what I mean by that is we're going to be looking at these numbers and these numbers. Okay? So to find the lower quartile and the upper quartile, those are kind of the midpoints of this half of our data and this upper half of our data. So if we're looking at that, then you can tell that what numbers in the middle. Well, if I have 5 numbers, what numbers in the very middle would be this number right here. Okay, so we're going to do that. We're going to find the median of the lower half. Now, that's to find the lower quartile. So that's I kind of shy away from saying the median of the lower half, but that's really what you're doing to find the lower quartile. So again, we could have taken, there's 5 of them, we could have taken 5 divided by 2, rounded up to 3, that's in the third place, but you can tell which one it is right here. Okay. We could have done 5 divided by 2 equals 2.5, which is in the third place. Now we're going to find the median of the last one, of the upper half. Find median of upper half. Now the upper half is the same thing as the upper quartile. Well, I'm sorry, the upper half is all these digits. The upper quartile is another word for the median of it. So that would be the number here. And again, you've got 5 of them. If you weren't sure which place it was in, you would say 5 divided by 2 to get 2.5. That rounds up to 3. You can do the same thing there. Okay, so the upper quartile is your 8.5. And your lower quartile, I didn't write that in, is the 5.6. So that's really all we're going to learn right here is how to find those. We're going to use this information in a little bit for something else, but let's go on and look at what we would do if there was a different number of numbers. So are y'all okay so far? This is really kind of a review so far.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, okay, good. Okay, so we're going to number our numbers. I mean, you can do that where you're writing on top of them, like how many numbers do I have? But I think that kind of makes a mess, but, oh, this time I only have 10 total. Is that even or odd?
Even.
Good. And we have a problem when we have an even number and we have to find the median, because remember, that's the first thing we're going to do is find the median. What problem do we have that we have to deal with? Well, let me put it this way. Is there going to be one number right in the middle? We
No.
have even. There's not going to be one right in the middle. So we have to find the 2 that are in the middle. Now, again, you could eyeball this and figure out which 2 you would. It looks like if I put these 2, there would be 4 on this side and 4 on this side. Okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But let's do our formula, because remember, sometimes we may be talking about 100 numbers or something, or 140 numbers. So what would we do here? We have 10 total. We're going to divide it by 2 because we want to kind of find where sort of that halfway mark is. Well, it's at the number 5. So that would be the 5th place. But we also want to do the next one and do the 6th one as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And that works because we have 4 numbers on this side and 4 numbers on that side. So how do I find the median with these 2? Do y'all remember?
Add them up and divide by 2.
Very good. So we take 7.1 plus 7.2. It's kind of like we're finding the average of them. We want to know the number that's right in the middle. Okay, so do that on your calculator. 7.1 plus 7.2 divided by 2. Now, you got to be careful. This is one of those things with your calculator. If you entered it in like that, 7.1 plus 7.2 divided by 2, only dividing 7.2 by 2. So you either have to put parentheses around the top 2 numbers, like this, or you could put 7.1 plus 7.2 and hit enter and then divide by 2. So one way or the other, just to make sure that it's going to do that. 7.1 plus 7.2 equals, I forgot to do my parentheses, so I went and did equals. I got the 14.3, divide that by 2. 7.15. So that number is right in between those two. So that's my median. So now I've got to find the lower quartile and then the upper quartile. For the lower quartile, remember, we're going to find the median of the lower half, or the midpoint, median or midpoint of lower half. Okay? Now here's where, if we have, okay, so what we did, just to backtrack, with the first one, when we had a particular midpoint that we could find, we excluded it. We did not count that in the lower half or the upper half. Do you see that? We kind of excluded it. Like, here's the lower half, I found the midpoint. Here's the upper half, I found the midpoint for the quartiles. Now here, we're not going to exclude. Okay, so if we have that even number, we do not exclude any numbers, I guess you could say. If we have an odd, oops, I just crossed it off. If we have an odd number, like we did here, we exclude the median of the whole thing. By that I mean we exclude the 7.2. So when we go to figure out our lower quartile, we take those numbers for the bottom half, and then we take these numbers here, these 5 numbers here for the top half. Okay, so if we're not excluding anything, then we're just going to put a line down the middle. Get a different color. Okay, so I'm going to use all my numbers. That means I'm going to use all of these up to this point. And I'm going to use all of these for my lower quartile and my upper quartile. For my lower quartile, I'm using the 6.6, 6.7, 6.7, 6.9, and 7.1. Okay, so I'm using all 5 of those. So what would be my lower quartile if I'm using all 5 of those numbers?
6.7.
It's right in the middle. So you got to kind of see it. Out of the, maybe even want to pencil that in, 6.6, 6.7, 6.7, 6.9, and 7.1. Out of all of those, the ones in the middle is here. Now, because there's 5 of them, there's 5 numbers, correct? That's an odd number. So what we do is we kind of split up our lower half and our upper half. And then we look at those numbers and decide if those are even or odd. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers, since I'm not excluding anything here. So the midpoint, or the median of that, is 6.7, the one right in the middle. Now again, you could always do, well, I have 5 numbers in the lower half. Divided by 2 is 2.5, which rounds up to 3. So I want the number in the third place, which is 1, 2, 3, right here. So my lower quartile is 6.7. Now again, you would do the same thing here, and in this case, I have 5 numbers. So again, it's going to be, I'm taking these 5 numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, dividing it by 2 would give me 2.5, that rounds up to 3 in the third place. Or I can just eyeball it and say, hey, I've got 5 numbers. Which one's in the very middle of that is 7.4 for upper quartile. So that gets a little confusing. So for upper quartile, you're going to find median or midpoint of upper half. And you're including all the numbers in the lower half. We included all 10 numbers, didn't we? 5 this way and 5 that way. We didn't take out that middle one for the beginning. Okay, so that's 7.4. Any questions so far? Because that's a little bit of a mess. Y'all good? Okay. Now remember, it kind of gets messy when I'm talking about it in class. So if you ever wanted to look in the filled in notes, this looks a little bit calmer because I'm not writing all over it. So but this will kind of make more sense when you see this, that we're not excluding anything. The median goes in the middle there and everything. So, okay, so let's go back where we were. Okay. Let's go down to where we're talking about 5-number summary. So that's one reason why we're finding those numbers. So if you look at the 5-number summary, it's just 5 numbers that you're getting from what we just did. So we've got the lowest value, and then we're going to have a comma, and then the lower quartile. We know how to find that now. The median of the whole thing. Okay, we already know how to find that. We found that first. Upper quartile, okay, we know where that is, and then the highest value. So notice it's kind of in the order that we're going across. So if I look at let me move this where I can see both of those. Okay. So we're going to look at the 5-number summary for both the example 1 and example 2. So example 1 is this first one right up here. So example 1, we're going to look at the lowest value that it has. In fact, I think I should just go ahead and circle what we're talking about on here, or maybe I'll put a square around it. So the lowest value, remember we already put them in order, made sure they were in order, is going to be 4.1. I'm going to put a comma. And then I'm going to do the lower quartile. And sometimes we write LQ for that. The lower quartile was the 5.6, comma. And then we have the median. This is the median, remember, of the whole thing, 7.2, comma. And then we have the upper quartile, which was my 8.5, comma. And then we have the very highest or biggest value, 11 or 11.0. So there's your 5-number summary. Okay, so it's just, this was the lowest value, low, and then this is lower quartile, median of the whole thing, upper quartile, and then the highest value, or the biggest value. Okay? So I want you to take a minute to write down the 5-number summary for example 2. Okay, so somebody tell me what you got for the lowest value for example 2. What y'all get for your low value? Well, remember we put them in, I'm sorry, what? The very lowest one? The smallest number?
6.6.
Yeah. Good. Okay, 6.6. And then we would go to our lower quartiles. What did we get for that?
$6.7.
Good. And what did we get for the median of the whole thing?
$7.15.
7.15, good. So, I mean, sometimes, and that's kind of tricky because that number is not one of these on the list, is it? So remember when you have to find a median, or it could happen in the lower quartile, the upper quartile. If you have to circle two numbers, it may not be something right on here. So with 7.15 was our median, that's going to be your point here. Upper quartile, oh, I didn't put upper quartile there, did I? This one's
7.4.
Yep, 7.4. And what about the highest number or the biggest number?
$7.8.
Yeah. So now on the lowest number, it's always going to be the first number and the last number if you've remembered to put them in order from least to greatest. So you always want to check that and make sure that the numbers are in order, least to greatest. And then you know your low number and your high number, you've got those. Those are going to be exactly what's there and what's there. The other three, it kind of depends on, the first example we did, the median, we circled it. That was on there. But on the second one, we had to find the median by looking at the middle two numbers and taking that average, didn't we? So now it just so happens that both of these ended up having 5 on each side here and here. And when we split this in half, we had 5 and 5. But we'll do some more examples where it doesn't always turn out that way. Okay, let's go on to the next page. Suppose we had measured 8 females and their heights in inches and received the following results. So we've got these numbers here. Something really grabs me that I need to do first before I even start. What do I need to do with those numbers, you think?
Least to greatest.
Yes. So go ahead and do that first. Okay, so y'all help me because y'all can see better than I can. I'm thinking 60 is first. 62.
59.
Oh, thank you. See, I already missed one. 59. I didn't even see that one. 60. 62. 64. 66. 67. Ooh, I'm gonna miss that one. 69 and 70. 66. Now, what I would do is count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I've got 8 of them there. Make sure that when you write them down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, to make sure that I've got them. So I'm glad you told me right off because I wouldn't want to leave that out, but I would have caught myself by counting both of them. So I want you guys to do that too. Okay, so now that we've got it in order, the first thing we're going to do is find the median. Now, really what I thought about doing is, I guess I won't skip this one. I kind of thought about skipping this one because it's a lot like what we just did. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do is if you're watching this on video, pause it and try to work this out. And then I'll show the other part of this. So for you guys, let's just talk this through. First thing you would do is find the median. If there's 8 of them, are you going to be able to find the median on that as far as it being one number? No, because it's with 8 total, that's even. So that means that we have to what? Take the middle two numbers, which if we couldn't find it, we could do 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So it's going to be in the 4th spot and the 5th spot, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. And we could kind of tell that by looking at it, because that leaves me 3 on this side and 3 on that side to find the median. So if we don't know the median, we're going to add those up and divide by 2, and that's going to be 65. Okay, if you added that up and divided by 2, you should get 65. I can tell that because 64 and 66. So that's our median. Okay, so once we find the median, we do the lower quartile, and then we're going to do the upper quartile. So lower quartile, to find that, are we going to exclude anything? Are we going to ignore any of the numbers? That's right, we don't. Because since it's even, we're going to use all the numbers. There's not one particular number that's on here that was a median, right? Our median is really 65 of the whole thing. So we're just going to split it in half, okay? And we're going to use these numbers. Oh, this does end up being a good problem. We do need to work this out. When I glanced at it last night, I was like, that's a lot like what we just did, but these do end up being different. So how many numbers do we have here for the lower quartile? We're looking at 59, 60, 62, and 64. Y'all see that? So how are we going to find the lower quartile if there's 4 numbers? So remember, the lower quartile is like finding the median of the lower half, remember? So, so if we've got 4 numbers to deal with, 1, 2, 3, 4, can we just circle 1 in the middle and say that's the lower quartile?
No.
We're not going to be able to do that. So we're going to take the middle 2, which we could find out which numbers that would be. If we did it the wrong way, we could do 4 divided by 2, and that would give me 2, so it would be in the 2nd place and the 3rd place. But you can tell by looking at it which 2 are in the middle, can't you, with these 4? So how would I find the numbers between 60, and that's a 62. I kind of went over. Now, you could probably tell what's between 60 and 62, can't you? But if you didn't know, kind of take the average of it, right? 60 plus 62 is like 122 divided by 2, which is 61. Yeah, that's right. And you can tell that 61 is between 60 and 62. Correct? So the lower quartile is 61. Okay? Now you're going to do the same thing with upper quartile, so this should go a little faster for you. Upper quartile, we're doing the same thing. We got 4 numbers. We're going to take the median of upper half. Which means if I couldn't tell what it was, I would do 67 plus 69 divided by 2 to find it, but you're going to get 68. 68 is right in the middle of those. Okay. So to get the 5-number summary, now you're going to use your numbers here. So I ended up going ahead and talking y'all through this, but write down what you think your numbers would be. So I'm going to write mine up here, but don't look at mine. I want you to look at what you've written on your paper and write down your 5 numbers for your 5-number summary. Okay, so notice that, remember the smallest value and the largest value are always going to be the smallest one and the largest one. We don't have to worry about those. But in this case, our lower quartile is not on here, is it? We found that it's 61. It's between those two. So we have 59 for the lowest value, 61 for lower quartile. The median was also not circled on here since we had 8 numbers, an even number. It's 65. Then the upper quartile we had to figure out is 68. And then we've got the highest value. So that's our answer. And again, if you wanted to see a cleaner copy, you could always look at the other version of this on Blackboard. Any questions on that?
Mm-mm. Nope.
Okay. Okay, the next example. Example 5. Now they're giving you 2 lists of numbers here. It says the table below gives the 2016 cost of living index for 6 cities with a relatively high cost of living. So their high cost is over here. And 6 cities with a relatively low cost of living. So we want our cost of living to be low. We want the costs associated with living, like your mortgage and your gas and your those kind of things. So we want a low cost of living. Let's see. The index is based on housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, healthcare, and miscellaneous goods and services. 100 represents the national average. Okay, so you notice that all the numbers with the low cost cities are below 100, which means it's below the national average, and these are all above. So you want to live somewhere where the cost of living is the lowest. I think Houston area is probably closer to average, or maybe a little more, somewhere around in there. But it's still so much better than a lot of other cities. So the cost of living is really high. Now, on some of those places, you might make more money, more salary, but I don't know that it really makes up for the difference in the cost of living, because there also can be more taxes. So I know in New York and California, they not only have a national sales tax that we pay, of course, they also have, I'm sorry, I'm saying that wrong. An income-based tax, just like we do. They also have state tax like that. So we have state sales taxes. So when you go buy something, that's when you're paying your state and local taxes. But they're also taxed from the state on their income as well. And you're taxed from the federal government, the national government for taxes, but they're kind of double taxed on that. They may not have as many, I think, sales taxes, but the kind of good thing about being here is I know we've gone through a couple of times in my marriage where my husband either lost his job or had to take like a half cut in pay and then look for another job, and we just really cut way back on our expenses and tried to not go into debt any more than we were. In fact, we even kind of got out of debt in some of that. We just really scaled back on our expenses. So that means your sales taxes as much, but if you're living somewhere that you're taxed on your income on both national and state, it's really hard to, I think, get out of, kind of get ahead there. So, or get, come out of something like that. Okay, so back over here, let's look at this. So these are higher cost of living, lower cost of living. Find the median and range of the high cost cities. So we're just finding the median and the range, high cost city. So there's all of these guys right here. Now, one thing we need to do first, what was the very, very, very first thing before we even look at median? What do we need to do first? So order first. So if we're looking at the high cost, we're going to go least to greatest. So what's the smallest number that you see? Somebody tell me.
145.
Yeah, and it looks like they're kind of going backwards. 145, 148, 149, 149, 177, and then 228. So I just kind of went up the chain here. So we want to go smallest to largest. Okay, then once we do that kind of our thing we kind of really do first, then the item that we need to look for is median. So we're going to do that. That would be the first thing we would do anyway, even if we were doing all the other stuff. So median. Now we would need to count these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 total. That even or odd. That's an even number. So are we going to, well, how are we going to find the median if there's an even number?
The middle.
The middle one, okay, is there one in the middle, in the very middle on this?
If it's even, no.
That's right. So we would really like look at the middle two numbers. And if we couldn't tell what they were, couldn't we have done the 6 divided by 2 thing to figure it out? That would be the third place and the fourth place, which are those two. Now, what would be the median if they're both the same number, you think?
149.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, it's going to be the same number. But let's say you weren't sure, like, what? I don't know what to do here. Always take the two numbers and add them up and divide by 2. You could do 149 plus 149 and divide it by 2. You're going to get 149. So don't let that throw you. Okay, so that's the median. But what about range? We haven't talked about that today. We already have talked about it. But what do I do for range? Y'all remember?
wait,
Subtract the lowest number by the biggest number.
Yes. Yes.
see.
You're gonna take the high or the biggest number minus the lowest. Okay, so these two, you're gonna take 228 and subtract the 145 from it, because you're just trying to know, you're really just trying, what's the difference between the highest number and the lowest number? You're like, what is the range of numbers? Meaning there's not going to be anything lower than 145 and there's not going to be anything higher than 228. So what is the range of numbers that we're dealing with for this whole thing? We can find the difference between them or subtract them. We're going to take the higher number and subtract the lower number. Okay, so that gives us, did anybody do that on their calculator? Because I want to check mine. Make sure that, okay, good. All right, any questions on that? So far, so good. That's been pretty easy. But we need to find the 5-number summary. Now we know the low number, we know the median, and we know the high number. What else do we have to know for the 5-number summary? Low number, lower quartile, median in the middle, upper quartile, and then the high number, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to find the lower quartile and the upper. Do we exclude any numbers on this one? Or are we going to use all the numbers?
All the numbers.
We're going to use all of them because there wasn't a median that was in this list of numbers. If we'd had an odd number, we would have circled the median on here and we wouldn't be using it. We don't have that. So we're going to be using these 3 numbers and these 3 numbers. So it's kind of easier to see what is going to be the lower quartile with 145, 148, and 149. if I have 145, 148, and 149.
Mhm.
148.
Yeah, it's the one in the middle. Do y'all see it?
Yep.
Okay, so it's this guy right here. Looking at 145, 148, and 149, that is the lower quartile. Okay? So we would have to find the lower quartile, which is the 148, and we would have to find the upper quartile. What would be the upper quartile in that case then?
That would be
177.
95. Wait. Oh.
Somebody said 177 because remember we split the numbers, okay? So we're using the lower three and we're using the upper three. Numbers, what's in the very middle? I'm just kind of writing it here so you can see it a little bit better. The one in the very middle is 177. Upper quartile, lower quartile. Now, I mean, it gets a little jumbled up when you're looking at it all together, but just know that since we didn't exclude anything, you're using the lower numbers and just the upper numbers. Let me just flip real quick over to my other thing and show you because it might be easier to see it without all the mess. Wait a second. I'm down here. Okay, so here's the numbers here. And see how we did not, our median was kind of in the middle of those two. We didn't circle a number on this. We're taking the middle two. So we're really splitting it in half. And we're taking these three numbers, 145, 148, and 149. The middle number is 148. And then we're taking the 149, 177, and 228, and we're using the middle one there for the upper quartile. Okay, so the 5-number summary, you would list those numbers. So that would be the smallest number was the 145. Now remember, we're going to use the smallest and largest for sure. 145 is the first number, and then we're going to get to the end of it, it's going to be the 228. We can actually go ahead and put that in there. Now, what would be the median? We found it first, didn't we? But it wasn't on the line. We found the median first, median. And then the lower quartile is the number in the middle of these three, which is 148. The upper quartile is the number in the middle of these three, which is 177. Okay? Maybe if we do the other one. Okay, so to find the median of the next one, I'm going to quickly write these in order. It looks like we're going in kind of the opposite order again. So we've got 76, 80, 80, 82, 83, 83. Now you've got 6 numbers again. This one will be done exactly like this one is. So instead of kind of taking time on this, I'm thinking maybe we'll go over this next time in class. I'm going to make a note to kind of go over this one later. And so if you're watching the video, you can actually just flip over here or pause it and go ahead and work these two. So you guys can do that as well at home if you want to, and then we'll go over it next time. But you would do the same thing. You've got your 6 numbers. Your median is going to go in the middle of those two, so you would find your median first. and then you would find the range. That was the other thing they said. You do the high number minus the low number. So remember, you've got to put these numbers in order from least to greatest for these things, because you would have missed something on the median and you would have missed something on the range if you don't do that. Okay, so let's look at the next part. We're going to be talking about box plot. Now on box plot, that is really just showing a picture or a graph, a picture of kind of what we're doing on 5-number summary. So you're going to take your 5-number summary and you're going to draw what's called a box plot. Okay, so this is kind of the last thing here we're going to learn, and we'll go back and do some more on standard deviation. Okay, so box plot. It really allows us to see the distribution of our points. In other words, where exactly is kind of the middle of it, what is the range of everything from least to greatest, and where's the important parts of it. So we're going to be using the 5-number summary to draw a box plot. So it says right here, to draw a box plot of example 4's data. So if I look back at example 4, then we're going to be using that 59, 61, 65. Okay, let me see if I can remember what those are. Okay, so we're going to be using the 59, 61, 65, 68, and 70. One thing about using my open math is it is a lot like Pearson, my math lab, where you really don't want to put spaces in between when you list yours. You would put commas in between, but no spaces. So this is a 5-number summary. Sometimes I use the number symbol is what I think of it as for number. Y'all think of it as hashtag, but grew up, it was just meant number. Okay, so what we're going to do is use those to draw a box plot. So what you're going to do is draw a number line, and you want to go from at least the lowest point to the highest point, but you may even want to go a little lower than that. You don't have to, but maybe start at 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 68, 69, 70. At least go up to 70. So that's 61. I'm going to kind of skip the numbers so that I can fit them all on here. 63. Okay, so we're going from, sorry about that, that kind of messed up my 63. I'm going to fix that. That's going to bother me. Okay, so what I was saying is you don't have to write every number in. You can, but you can do like every other number so that it's not so jumbled up. Okay, so here's your number line. Now what you're going to do is the median is going to go in. Let's do the median first. The median is going to have a line going up and down. So the median was 65. Okay. And then we're going to draw our box to the upper quartile and lower quartile. Those three numbers are what we're going to be looking at. Those numbers in the middle, the lower quartile, the median, and the upper quartile. So we're going to have another line where the lower quartile is 61, and we're going to have another little line where the 68 is. Okay, so I know this is a little confusing. We're going to draw a box. Okay, so our median of the whole thing is kind of the middle of the box. And then our lower quartile is one edge, and the upper quartile is the other. Y'all seeing where I got that? It's going from lower quartile of 61 up to 68. That's our box, okay? So that kind of makes our box like here. Now, sometimes that line might be way over here, close to the upper quartile, or way down here. It's not going to be in the middle necessarily of the box. It's going to be inside the box. The median is. And then what you're going to do is you're going to make little whiskers, I think they call it, to go to the upper and lower limit of it, or the highest point and the lowest. So we're going to go have just a line coming off the middle, go to 59, and over here goes to 70. And usually they put some kind of little thing on the end of it just so you can kind of see where it ends. So that shows us our range. It shows us the numbers are all between 59 and 70. I didn't really make that very good. But the bulk, not the bulk of the numbers, but this kind of gives us an idea of where the lower quartile, we know the low quartile, we know where the median is. It's inside the box, and the upper quartile. Okay, so it says, draw a box plot comparing the 5 number summaries in example 5. Okay, so we can have two, you're going to have to draw two really box plots because the numbers are skewed. So let's just do the high cost cities, because that's the ones we kind of looked at. And the numbers were 145, 148, 149, 177, and 228. So we will draw a line here and put our numbers in. I'm going to flip over to the other one so that, just to save us a little bit of time. Okay, so when you put your numbers in, you at least start with 145. And you could do something like start with 140 and then do every 5, 140, 140. So you can do this different ways. Now, this goes from 145 to 155, 165, 175, 185, 195, 205, 215, 225, up to 230. Now, I think what I would do, I don't know that, let me go back over here. I think I would start with 140 maybe, 150, 160, 170. I'm just kind of put little lines in between 180. Now I've got to go all the way up to over 228. $210. And I'm putting like a line in between because that's kind of the 5 mark in between, I guess you could say. 15, 20, and 230. I really think that may make more sense to you. So start with, I would think it's best to start with a number a little bit lower than what it starts with, and you want to go a little bit higher than what it ends with. So I wouldn't want to make a mark for every number in between 145 and 228, would I? So just to kind of do every 5, you know, you'd have little marks for every 5 of them. Now, you could have started with 145 here. You could have done it that way. 145 and then 150, 155, and so on. Okay, but the point is, let's look at where our median would be. $149, that'll be right before, oh man, our median's way over here. And then we go to our lower quartile and upper quartile. So we're going to go to 148, which is right there. And then this is going to go to 177. So my box, oops, I shouldn't have written that line in between. Sorry about that. I was so concerned with my box, I messed up my part in the middle here. Oops. Oh. That eraser. Okay, so again we had 149. We have 140. No, wait a minute. 149 and 148. I'm just going to start over. Okay, 148. Okay, now we got it. So there's our box. So see how the median, you kind of think, oh, it's going to be in the middle of the box. It's not, is it? Because the median is so close to the lower quartile. We might not have noticed that if we didn't draw this. So that's why it's important to draw this out as a box plot. Oops. And then this is just going to go to 145, which is right here. So we've got a short little whisker on this side. And then we're going to go all the way to 228 here. So that gives us a better picture of how these numbers are going. The bulk of them look like they're between 145 and 180. They're all kind of on this end. And then, but it stretches out over here. Okay, so that's kind of the whole point of this. Now what I'll do is we'll do the other one next time. So we haven't done the low cost one yet. We'll come back and look at that. So of course, if you're on the video, you can actually do the low cost one, and then you can check it with the other numbers that are the other filled out version that's on Blackboard as well. Okay, this last example. Okay, this shows salaries for actuaries and CPAs. So this tells us some things. Remember that our box plot this is our 5-number summary, isn't it? This is the low end right here. This is the lower quartile, this part right here. This would be the median salary right in here. And this is the upper quartile on this edge of the box. And this is our highest number. Okay, so same thing here. This would be your lowest here. Let me get a different color. My lowest number is here. My lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and then the high value. Okay, determine 5 numbers, a summary for CPA. So do that for the CPA and do that for the actuary. Well, you kind of have to estimate a little bit. So the low end on the CPA looks like it's about 30, and the lower quartile is about at 40. What's the median? Maybe 75. The upper quartile, 90. The high value looks like a little less than 100,000. Let me just make sure I put even. We're going to go ahead and put 100,000. Okay, so that's the 5-number summary for a CPA. And what would it be for an actuary? We're just going to do the same thing. So if you're on the video, go ahead and pause it. Write your 5 numbers down. Okay, what would y'all write for the low on end on actuary?
40.
Mm-hmm. And then the lower quartile, 75-ish. Median is, remember, that's the line inside the box. Upper quartile, I mean, we'll make sure I'm putting the same thing. We're just estimating 95. And then the high end, well, it's over 100,000. Maybe about halfway, so 105. Okay, but it says Kendra makes the median salary for the actuary. So which one is the actuary? The actuary was the second one here. So Kendra makes median salary. So she's at the median salary here. This is Kendra. And Kelsey makes the first quarter salary for the CPA. So CPA, first quartile. First quartile is the same as the lower quartile. So I might need to write that down. First quartile, same thing as low quartile. And sometimes they'll call the upper quartile upper quartile, the third quartile. That's just because sometimes they call it first, second, the first quartile, the second quartile, and the third quartile. But you're not going to see that too often. But okay, Kelsey makes the first quartile salary right here for the CPA. That puts her at this range. That's Kelsey. Okay, so Kendra makes a median salary for the actuary. Kelsey's makes a lower quartile. Who makes more money? So okay, so if Kendra's right here, it looks like Kendra is making 90,000 because it's in thousands of dollars. We've got Kelsey is making 40. It says how much more. Now you could have figured this out. You could do it this way. You could say, well, how much more? Oh, and actually we didn't say who makes more money. It's Kendra. How much more? We just subtract them out. 90,000 minus, yeah, 50,000 more. Now you could have figured this out using the 90 and the 40. So we've got the 90 and the 40 here. You could have said, okay, 90 minus 40, which is 50, but you've got to remember that to look back at the problem and make sure that you change that into thousands of dollars. So that would be 50,000 as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do, just to, because I know I need to go back over standard deviation with y'all. We actually in this class looked at the last example a little bit more than this second example. So I want to spend just a few minutes kind of going back over this. So let me pull this up. Where am I? This is back in the 16 notes, but it's actually part of 17 for standard deviation. Okay, so anytime you're wanting to find the standard deviation, you're always going to find the mean first. You're going to have to know the mean. Okay, so this is actually a different one, I think, than what, oh, well, it looks very similar. Okay, so you find the mean. The mean, remember, I'll be mean if you don't remember, the mean is the average. And we also write it as the X bar. So you're going to take these numbers. Now, you could have done 4 plus 4 plus 4. You could just add all the numbers up. So we talked about this the other day. But we don't really want to do that. We don't want to write them all out because there might be a bunch of numbers. So a better way to do it is this way. How many 4s do I have? There's 3 of them. 4 times 3 plus 5 times how many I have times 4 plus 6 times 3. And that will get all the numbers. And then I would count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, there's 10 total. Now on your copy, I think I pulled the wrong one up when I got this ready. It has the standard deviation formula for you. So I want to point that out. Now that little squiggly thing, I like to make those. Those are kind of cool. That just means sum of x minus x bar, which we know that's mean, squared, over n minus 1. And one thing about that n minus 1 is we definitely want to later put parentheses around it. But really, the thing is we're going to do the pieces of this. Instead of using this horrible looking formula, we're not going to really use it. What we're going to do is we're going to put in the data values, okay? And then we're going to do the x minus x bar. Your x, this is your x value, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All those values, that's your x. You're going to take that and subtract the mean. Okay, what was the mean? The mean is 5. So you're going to subtract. So see how they're all taking the numbers and subtracting them by 5. So we did this the other day. We can do the first one, 4 minus 5 squared. Minus 5 is a negative 1. Negative 1 squared is 1. And then you have the same thing for this guy. Okay. And then we did, remember we did this, 5 minus 5 squared. Well, 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 squared, of course, is 0. And then I know that the other ones are going to be all zeros. Okay. And then we said, okay, I'm going to do 6 minus 5. Now, I think what this one is doing too much at once. I kind of pulled up the wrong one. I tell you what I should probably do is I think what your chart had was just the x minus x bar. So do I have time to do this? Yes, I do. To keep, I pulled up the wrong one. So I think what I'm going to do is let me just go to a whiteboard real quick. So that you're not seeing two different things. Okay, so you have your x value. And you have this written down, so you don't really have to write this again. And then they had minus the mean, which the mean we figured out was 5. So you're just going to go 4 minus 5 and find that number. So 4. So that's going to be, that's where you're going to have the same thing here. 1, 1, 1. And then if we did 5 minus 5, you get 0. Well, that's going to be the same for all the 5s, right? They're all going to be 5 minus 5. Then we're going to do 6 minus 5. which is 1. And that's going to be 1 is 6 minus 5 again, and 6 minus 5 again. So those are all the x minus x bar. Now we're going to take that and square them. So I'm going to take the 1 squared, which is 1, and so on. 1 squared is 1, 1 squared is 1. This is a little confusing because 1 times 1 is 1. We're getting the same things. What about 0 squared? You're still getting 0. 1 squared, you're getting 1 again. Okay, so we're going to take this x minus whatever the x values are, subtract it from the mean, and get those numbers. Then we're going to square those numbers. Now, these should always be positive. Should be positive. Because when you square something, it's positive. Now, you could end up getting negative numbers in here for x minus x bar. But when you square them, negative times negative will give you positive. That's one reason why we do that in the problem. Now, that is what you're going to take the sum of. Because remember what our formula was for standard deviation? It's x minus x squared. So we're going to find the sum of all that.
It's what? Your mic cut out.
Oh, I'm sorry. I might have.
Yes.
Okay, I think I had
It
my
like-
hand on something. Okay, so that's our formula. So not that we don't really have to know that right now. We're just going to have to take the sum of whatever x minus x bar was squared. So we found those numbers. So we have 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0, 0, 0 plus 1. That's going to be 6. So the sum of all that stuff is 6. We just added those numbers up. Okay, 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 0 plus 0, 0, 0 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 6. So we know what goes on the top of our standard deviation. That's the sum of all that stuff. And then we're going to do n minus 1. Well, remember, n is the number of items that you have. So how many numbers, if we numbered these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Don't I have 10 numbers here? So I have 10 numbers that I'm dealing with. Or those are, no, not just 10 numbers that we're dealing with. So that is our n. N is 10. So we're going to do 10 minus 1. Now, there's a reason why we do that. In our stats class, when I was getting my master's, they said something about the sample size. Since we're talking about a sample, it just makes it more accurate, but you don't really have to know that. So then you're going to just keep going with this. So that's the square root of 6 over 10 minus 1 is 9. So you can put that in your calculator, 6 divided by 9, and get that number, and then take the square root of that. So when you do that, well, let me just try it real quick. I want to see what I get. 6 divided by 9. I'm getting, oh, it's a repeating decimal. Repeating, or 6.7 if we round that somewhere. So wait a minute. Oh, but we got to take the square root. So keep it on your calculator. So see, on my calculator, I'm keeping it all the way out. I don't even want to go further. Like, keep it all the way out as far as it'll go. Okay, on my calculator. And then I want to take the square root of that. Now, on this particular calculator, you've got to do the square root first, which is really you're going to use the blue second button. I'm writing it in red, but the blue second button in the top corner. Because if you look for square root, it's right above the x squared button. There, let me just go ahead and make it blue so it doesn't look weird. There's a blue square root. So you're going to hit the blue second button in the top left. Okay, so that would be the first thing you do. Second. And then you're going to hit the x squared button, because that just tells it to do the blue stuff above it. So that's going to take the square root of. You'll see that come up on your screen. You'll see square root and then the parenthesis. And then you're going to fill in the number. You're going to say, okay, point. Well, no, you don't have to fill in the number. You can do 6 divided by 9 and close it. And that should take the square root of that. So I have my square root open, 6 divided by 9, close the parenthesis. So it's going to open it for you. It's going to open this parenthesis, but you're going to have to close it. Close the parenthesis. And then you can hit enter. So it'll look like this. 6 divided by 9, and then you have to close it. And then hit enter. Okay. And that's where you're going to get your number. I'm getting 0.81649, whatever. And if we're told to round to the hundredths place, that would be approximately 0.82. Okay, so that's kind of standard deviation. So I think the tricky part is looking at all the little parts of it. But remember, you're just doing that one formula. You're just doing it in pieces. So you're trying to find the sum of whatever your x values are minus the mean. So just do it in parts like that. So if I could quickly go back over here. Look at this last example too, and this is kind of broken down for you as well. But you're using that formula. You're going to find your mean first, and you're going to take each value they give you, 13, 23, 37, and so on, and you're subtracting the mean from it. So this is kind of doing it all in one step. So we may want to look at this later and kind of do this step by step, but that once you do that, keep out your decimal places on those, add them up, and then once you have that, that is your sum of the x minus x bar that's in your formula. And then you're just going to put that over whatever n is minus 1. N is how many digits? 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. There's 8 of them there. So when you get to here, you got to do 8 minus 1 as part of your formula. Okay? Once you do that, you figure out this part, because I mean, to me, this is kind of broken up a little bit, but you can take that formula and do that step by step. Okay, so since we're running out of time, I'm going to go ahead and stop this. But I would suggest going through this yourself and kind of making your chart, and it'll make this make a little bit more sense. But kind of work through this before you get to your homework. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the video.